Hello, everybody. Welcome to Counselor's Couch. Since it is the season and Christmas is coming, I thought I'd share this little story that I have been around a long time. This is the original copy of this story. This is the original. It's been done in several editions since then, and there's some on Amazon that have an entirely different cover. But I can put the link to that in the information down below if you're interested. But the story inside and the artwork is the same. It just has a different cover. So I'm going to read you the story. I'm going to show you the artwork, and it's just a little story about a tree that gets stuck in the woods and can't get out for Christmas. Something you can share with your younger ones if there's any interest there. So here we go. This is a story about Douglas. Douglas was a tree who lived deep in the backwoods up on a little knoll which overlooked the whole forest. Now, most trees would have been very happy to live on a pretty hill with plenty of water and good soil and sunshine all to themselves, but not Douglas. You see, Douglas was a Christmas tree, and more than anything else, Douglas wanted to spend Christmas in some friendly little house with one or two kids who could really appreciate him. On the day that our story begins, Douglas was up on his hill, as he always was, and he was crying his eyes out, as he usually did. It was the beginning of winter. Christmas was near, and Douglas was afraid that he was going to be left behind once again. Now, the first days of winter were when the cold north wind would roam freely about the forest. "This is my season," he would roar, "and nobody rules over the north wind in winter." I guess you could understand how he felt because he had only a few short days to himself every year, and he didn't want to share them with anybody. So, anyway, on this particular day, the north wind was blowing through the low sky over the hill where Douglas lived, and he happened to hear the little tree crying. He turned himself right around, dropped to the ground, and pulled up short, right where Douglas was standing. "Say now," the north wind said gruffly, "what's all this carrying on about?" The little tree was beside himself with grief, and it took him a good while to calm down. "It's winter," the tree cried. "I know," said the north wind proudly, "the best season of the year. So what's your problem?" "The problem is," said the little tree, "that it's almost Christmas, and I'm a Christmas tree, and it looks like I'll be stuck here for another year." "Stuck?" asked the north wind. "What do you mean, stuck? It looks to me like you have everything you need. Plenty of soil, lots of water, and lots of good cold air to make you grow," he said, thumping his chest. "Yes," agreed Douglas, "but I also have all these huge boulders around me, and they're standing on my feet, and I can't see over the top. And if I can't see out, then nobody can see in, and I won't ever have a chance to go to some nice little house for Christmas." "Why would you want to do that?" the north wind asked. "Because I'm a Christmas tree," Douglas moaned, "and that's what I was born to do." The north wind snorted a gust of cold Arctic air at the little tree, and several of Doug's branches crusted over with a thin layer of ice. "I don't think that's such a big problem," the north wind said. "All you have to do is wait until some humans come up here looking for you." "That's just it," wailed Douglas. "All of the other Christmas trees are down there in the forest. They don't live this far up. Besides, the only place that any humans could see me is from that little clearing between the rocks, and who is likely to come up there?" "Why do you want to leave the forest anyway?" puffed the wind. "Seems to me you don't know when you're well off. You've got to learn who your real friends are, boy." "Well, it certainly isn't you," screamed Douglas. "My parents are down in the forest where they belong, and I have the notion that it was you who brought me up here in the first place." "Hrumph!" snorted the north wind. "I don't have to take insults from a whippersnapper like you, especially in winter." Then the north wind sucked in his belly and leaped into the sky. After a pass or two around the top of the forest, he turned left and was gone. All was quiet for a while, until Douglas softly resumed his whimpering. "Don't cry, little tree," said one of the huge boulders. "Is it really so bad living here on our pretty knoll?" "Yes," declared Douglas. "I'm a Christmas tree, and I belong in a nice house on Christmas Eve." "Well, maybe we'll go next year," suggested one of the other rocks. "Look at me," Douglas ordered. "Right now I can barely see over the top of your head, but by next year I'll be able to watch the whole forest. I'll be too big. If I don't find a home this year, nobody will want me." "Well, I don't know what we can do to help," answered the rock. They were all quiet again because they were feeling badly that Douglas was so unhappy. But then one of the boulders had an idea. "Listen," he said excitedly, "what if we all roll off your feet? Then maybe you can get free and move down into the forest where someone can find you." Douglas was overjoyed. "Could you really do that?" "We can try," answered the boulder. And with that, the huge gray hunk of granite started to lean way over on his side. When he had leaned as far as he could, he brought himself back and swung all the way over to the other side. It was very slow at first, but after he got going, he was rocking feverishly back and forth. The ground trembled, and Douglas was bombarded with flying bits of gravel. In fact, the boulder was shaking so hard that Douglas was sure the huge rock was going to break himself up into a million pieces. Abruptly, the slab stopped. As he gulped down great gobs of air, he tried to apologize to Douglas. "I'm sorry, little tree," he gasped. "I can move, but I can't roll over. I guess I'm just too deep in the ground." "That's okay," Douglas said. "I know you tried." One of the other boulders said, "Would you like me to try, Douglas?" But Douglas shook his head. "No, I don't want anybody to get hurt on my account." "Well, there must be something we can do," the boulder said. Just then, a few of the neighborhood birds who had been watching the whole affair came up with an idea. "Douglas," they chirped, "what if we can pull you out?" "Well, I don't know," said Douglas. "Do you think you can?" "We can try." And so 4 or 5 of them flew over the little tree, and while they were hovering there, they each took hold of one of his top branches. One of the birds yelled, "Ready, set, go!" and they all gave a mighty tug. Feathers were flapping and talons were straining, but they couldn't get that little tree to budge. "It's no use," wailed Douglas. "I'll be stuck here forever." "Well, you know," said one of the birds, huffing and puffing, "I could fly over to the creek and get the beaver to come up here. He'll have you out in no time." "Yeah, but only half of me would be out," cried Douglas. "No, don't get the beaver. I'll need my feet when I leave here." "Then what do we do?" asked another one of the little birds. "I don't know," said Douglas. "I just don't know." Then they all heard a deep, gruff voice say, "Maybe I can help." They turned and saw a big brown bear climbing up on the knoll. "He's very strong," said the boulder. "He's bound to be able to help," said one of the birds. "I can try," said the bear. So the bear circled around the little tree, looking for the right spot. Then he leaned his strong shoulder against Douglas's trunk and gave a mighty shove. His legs strained as he grunted and growled. The bear bent Douglas way over, almost to the ground, but Douglas's feet wouldn't budge. Everybody was quiet while the bear caught his breath. No one wanted to say anything. They all knew that their strong friend had done the best he could. Finally, someone said, "What if we all try together?" "Yeah, what do you think, little tree?" asked a bird. "Well, I guess so," Douglas said, "if you want to." So the big brown bear got up and put his thick shoulder back against the right spot on Douglas's trunk. Every bird grabbed a branch in each of their talons, and all of the boulders began swaying back and forth. Someone yelled, "Go!" and they all pushed, pulled, and rocked as hard as they could. About then the north wind swept over the forest on his rounds. When he saw the commotion on top of the little knoll, he couldn't help but stop to laugh. and they did look rather comical, the boulders spinning furiously around while the birds flapped their talons out and the feather grunted and growled. "You'll never get him out of there," laughed the wind, "not without breaking him into splinters." That's when they all stopped, because they realized that the wind was right, and because they all felt a little bit foolish. "Well," said Douglas, sticking up for his friends, "at least they tried. That's more than you could do." "Try to do what?" scoffed the North Wind. "Make you into kindling? At least if I do something, it'll be something sensible." "Like what?" Douglas said defiantly. "Well, for one, I could tell you that while your friends were wasting their time, I noticed that there were some people down in the forest who were probably looking for you." "Why would they be looking for me?" Douglas wondered. "Because I also noticed that you are the only Christmas tree left in this part of the woods, and that's what they seem to be looking for." When they heard that, everybody peered into the forest, and just like the North Wind said, they saw a man, a boy, and a little girl. Douglas had to stretch, but he managed to just peek over the top of the boulder, and when he saw the little girl, he knew that was who he wanted to spend Christmas with. "But they'll never find me here," Douglas moaned. "They'll never see me from down in the forest." Then the little tree started crying all over again. "Oh, stop that blubbering," demanded the North Wind. "I can't stand the noise." But Douglas kept right on. In fact, he cried even louder. The North Wind ordered again, "Hush up, I say." But Douglas just couldn't stop. He was too sad. Tears were rolling off of every branch. The great North Wind mumbled a few words under his breath that nobody could hear, and then, in a fit of anger, he jumped high into the sky and came down on the little tree with a mighty blast of his freezing Arctic breath. He blew so hard that the birds were knocked off their perches and the bear rolled over. Even the boulders trembled a little bit. When all the blowing stopped, everybody turned to Douglas, and what they saw amazed them. The mighty North Wind had frozen all the tears on the little tree's branches, leaving Douglas encased in ice like a giant popsicle. "What have you done?" gasped the bird. "You ought to be ashamed of yourself," growled the bear. "Yeah," yelled a boulder. "He only wanted to make somebody happy for Christmas." The North Wind ordered, "Pipe down!" But nobody listened. They kept telling him how mean he was and what a terrible thing he had done. "All this complaining is worse than the tree crying," grumbled the wind. "It's your own fault," shouted a bird. "You should have helped him," insisted a boulder. With all of them shouting at once, the noise was so loud that the North Wind couldn't think straight, and he knew he would never have any peace and quiet again, at least as long as the little tree was stuck on his hill. "All right, enough," screamed the North Wind. "I'll help him." The mighty Lord of Winter quickly shot straight up into the sky. When he passed through the thick layer of winter clouds, he called up to the sun, "Hey, Baldy, wake up! I've got a job for you to do." The lazy orange orb rolled over to see what was going on. He usually didn't have much to do in winter, and nobody had ever called him before, but somebody had called his name, and he wanted to know who it was. As he leaned way over, he saw the North Wind dropping back to the sky. Before long, the wind had blown a big hole in the layer of clouds, and the sun could look all the way down to a little knoll deep in the backwoods. Then the wind rushed down the hill until he was below the man, the boy, and the little girl. Next he turned and raced back up the hill, hugging close to the ground. When he reached the people, he let loose a big blast of his Arctic breath. The man grabbed the two children and held them safe, but the North Wind managed to rip the wool cap off the little girl's head. He dropped it several yards away. "We'd better head for home," the man told the children. "It looks like the weather's getting bad." "But we haven't found our tree yet," said the boy. And I wanted a special tree, said the girl. The man explained that there weren't any good trees in the area anyway, and that they could look somewhere else tomorrow. The children said, okay, but they weren't happy about it. As they turned to leave, the little girl remembered her wool cap and ran to find it. Natalie, the man called, for that was the little girl's name. Natalie, come back. I just want to get my cap. I know right where it is, Natalie answered. She ran up the hill, and sure enough, it was right where she thought it would be, in a little clearing between some rocks. Natalie reached down and picked up her cap, but when she stood up, she caught her breath. She heard her father and her brother coming up behind her. She pointed her finger and gasped, "Oh, Daddy, look!" And as the three people looked up on the little knoll between some huge boulders, they saw something they would never forget. It was a Christmas tree covered with silver streams of ice. The sun was bouncing his rays off of all the little tree's branches, which seemed to be shining as if held in a warm light somewhere deep inside. A bear was lying comfortably at its feet, and happy little birds fluttered over its strong branches. Even the boulders seemed to want to huddle closer to it, as if they wanted to protect the little tree. "A special tree," whispered Natalie. The bear and the birds hurried away because they didn't want to scare the people. Then the man climbed up on the knoll and began to dig the little tree out of the ground. "We're going to save his roots so we can replant him in the yard," he told Natalie. "Then we'll have a special tree to decorate every Christmas." As the man, the boy, and the little girl carried the silver tree down the hill, Douglas waved a branch to say goodbye to the boulders and the birds and the bear. And when the north wind roared overhead, Douglas gave him a great big wink, as if to say, "You never know who all your friends are until you really need them." That's the story of Douglas, folks. That's how it went. The illustrations were by Joseph Silverhorn. All right. This book was done a long time ago. Like I said, there have been several editions of it placed out. There's are a few editions of them on Amazon. I'll put the link below. The cover is different, but the story is the same, and the artwork is the same inside the book. So, if you have any little ones that might enjoy this story, look for it there. And I wish each and every one of you a very blessed and Merry Christmas. Take care.